Inspirational. Powerfully refining. And unapologetically controversial. Conversations with the Royal Empress. The entire world knows the secret of who you are. Now is the time to step into your queendom and become the Royal Empress that you're meant to be. One woman at a time. Conversations with the Royal Empress. Now Akila, she's the analytical Empress. Akima, she's the Empress that will challenge you. And Lakisha Nadira, she's the Empress who tells it like it is. Now, straighten up your crown and be elevated through conversations. Conversations with the Royal Empress.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations with the Royal Empress. This is Akila, and joining me are my co-hosts Lakisha Nadira and Hakima. On this week's episode, we are touching on domestic violence. Should the same rules apply for men and women? Well, to quote my fellow co-host Hakima, the old narrative, men shouldn't hit women. But the new narrative, men and women shouldn't hit each other. All right, let's get to it.
You know, men are, you hear the often repeated phrase, men should not harm women. Men should not put their hands on a woman. It's not right for a boy to hit a girl. These are things that we hear often. And like I said, I agree that a man should not aggress a woman. I don't believe in a man disrespecting a woman physically, mentally, spiritually, in any kind of way, socially, however it's done. But my question becomes, if a woman feels the need to physically lay her hands on a man, and do the unthinkable, whether it's hit him, slap him, punch him, spit at him, whatever the case might be. And we see this. I've seen this. I'm sure you all have seen some of these videos that's floating around of a woman doing, the things that I just named. And then the man just getting to a point like, and so a lot of the videos I've seen, it wasn't a situation where the woman hits the man and then he just hit her back. It was a situation where she kept punching him, kept kicking him, kept hitting him, kept spitting on him, kept throwing something, or whatever the case might be. And then after so many blows, then he decided that, nope, not going to do this no more. So my question becomes, when do you draw the line? And what is the appropriate response when you have a woman who has become or is acting other than herself by, act or behaving in this manner and feeling as if that it's appropriate for her to go toe-to-toe with a man?
I think it depends on the woman. And I think it depends on the nature of what she's doing. I've raised my son not to put his hands on a woman. And I told him not to hit girls. And in fact, what I told him was, because he asked that question growing up, well, what if she does this to me? And I said, unfortunately, if you hit her back, more than likely you're the one that's going to jail. So you have to be very careful with that situation. And I told him, I said, so if it's possible to restrain her, you can restrain her without hitting her or harming her, just to kind of show, the difference that I'm stronger than you and I can do this. However, if she is doing something in which your life is in danger, that's all bets are off. So that's what I mean when I say it really just depends on what the situation is. If a woman is coming at you with a weapon that can end your life, then you know, as a man, you have the right to protect your life by any means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But just the ordinary, oh, she's just acting crazy and, you know, kicking and screaming, and you know that she really physically cannot harm you. Then
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, but see, most of the situations that I've seen is not that old. She slapped you, she hit, you know, it's not the old cutesy, just young woman or whomever who is not really causing any harm. I'm talking about these extreme cases. And I don't know, has anybody seen videos or has anybody witnessed or does anybody know of situations where a woman has physically assaulted a man over and over and over again, you know, in a way?
I personally physically assaulted in my younger days.
I mean, if you want to really talk about it, so have I. You know, so that's the truth be told.
Right.
So have I. Now, was it right?
Right.
Was it right? No. Was it right? No.
Am I saying no, it wasn't right. But so I understand that you can be taken there. And so what I will say is that I appreciate the men showing restraint and not beating me into a pulp.
Right. No, I've been there too. I think we've had this conversation now I think about it.
Right. It's when I was acting other than myself. Yes, we have.
Right. We have had this conversation, and I've myself, I've done the same thing. And like you said, I thank God for His mercy and for His grace and His divine intervention in my affairs.
Absolutely.
That I did not become a statistic because the person, you know, decided that they would restrain themselves. Because, see, the thing about it is natural. Just as we are taught, you know, some people may turn the other cheek. I was not raised on turning the other cheek. That was not the culture, you know, in which I came up in. That is not my belief system. I come from, you kill my cat, I'm going to kill your dog, okay? So when you ask of a man to do, and that's because that is natural. You know, when you are dealing with somebody attacking you, somebody harming you, it is natural for you to respond. It's natural. Would you all agree that it's natural for a man or a woman or whomever, a being, to respond when they're being attacked? So what is being asked of a man when he happens to be attacked by a woman is to really go into a upper room somewhere, to, you know, spiritually, to really rise. And I know we had this conversation.
That way, though.
No, this is true, but I guess what I'm getting to is not a matter of if they can or if they can't. It's a matter of, I won't say what's expected, but I guess, you know, and I guess we kind of touching on it, but what is the most appropriate way to handle it when you know already that it is not the nature of any human being, whether it be male or female, not to naturally defend themselves. So, yes, I get it. I do understand, and I teach my children the same thing. I have 3 male boys, and they know that, no, it is not appropriate for you to put your hand on a woman. It is not. But at the same time, you know, what if I'm that mother who finds out that it was my child on one of these videos, you know, like I see them floating around, and a woman or a young girl is literally attacking, you know, my child, beating them, you know, upside their head, doing all kind of things that are in complete violation. Am I saying, oh, we'll knock her out? No. Yes, restrain her to the best of your ability, but I guess what I'm saying is we're living in a world now where this is happening far too much, and it's absolutely out of control. So if a person feels that they can, you know, a woman I'm speaking of, if you feel like you are able to play with the fire, don't be upset if the fire happens to blow your behind up. Am I saying that it's right? Is it justice? And I'm just asking the question, because at the end of the day, no one should be putting their hands on anybody, male, female, or indifferent. But it's natural for a man or a woman to defend themselves. You were going to say, Hakima?
You know, a lot of the violence against women is not the scenario where a woman is hitting a man and he's trying to defend himself. It's the violence is more or less a thing of control. Women are looked at as objects. She breaks up with him and he gets upset. You don't break up with me, and now he's whooping her down. Or
but see, that's not what I'm talking about, though.
House. But I'm just saying, like when we talk about the violence, hitting a woman and that, yeah, there's a situation where a girl hits a guy so many times and he's like, I have to get her up off of me. Yeah, that's one case. But much of the violence against woman or man hitting a woman has been more controlled.
And I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. Most of the cases that I've seen in terms of domestic violence, it usually that is the root of it, control when you're dealing with violence against women. But there is still a percentage where that is not the case.
I mean,
there's a small percentage. No, absolutely. There are men who have experienced being the victim of domestic violence. You don't hear about them a lot because for many reasons. They don't want to come forth about it because it's embarrassing. Who wants to say that I got my behind beat down by a woman? Who wants to admit that, man, she's been kicking my butt since the beginning of the relationship. We've been together for 15 years. Nobody wants to come forth and say anything like that. So I really am speaking about the minority, not necessarily the majority. I mean, violence is violence. Unfortunately, in this world, there is no respect for the woman, and especially not the black woman. So, unfortunately, she's getting beat down on all levels, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially, socially, in every area of her life. So I'm definitely not, and I'm a woman who stands up for the rights and advocates on behalf of women. So I'm definitely not saying that it's something that I agree with, nor am I saying, that I'm not trying to find any loopholes or anything like that, but I guess I was really just asking the question for that minority. And I don't even know how much of a minority it is, because it seems like, and this is just based on my own experience, I've spoken with women who have been challenged with not knowing how to keep their hands to themselves when it comes to assaulting a man. But we don't hear this a lot. We don't hear this a lot.
But now let me ask you a question.
Probably, sure.
Let me ask you a question, because when we think about that, sometimes there's an underlying reason that you have women who do that. And so we can talk about the fact that it happens, but why does it happen? And sometimes it happens because that woman has actually at some point in her life either seen domestic violence at the hands of a man or been the victim of domestic violence from a man. And therefore sometimes they respond in that manner towards men as an aggressor because they feel like that's one way of protecting themselves. I
agree with you wholeheartedly, but it doesn't make it right.
I'm not saying it's right, but there's still a reason behind it, and so maybe
there's always going to be a reason.
But maybe if we understand why they do it, and they can figure out, maybe other women can figure out, okay, this is why I do this, because ultimately I'm trying to prove a point. I'm trying to prove that I'm not a victim.
And Akiva, I agree with you. I agree with you that is oftentimes the case. Most of the time it's a woman who's been aggressed in some way, or she has had to defend herself, or, it's just a response because of history that she's had. I agree. But I wonder, just like we're asking the question, well, hey, maybe this is what happened to her. And we're trying to more so, do the investigative mode to say, maybe this is her background, but do we take the same approach when it comes to a man? I don't think so. I don't think women or men in this country, or just, even, I won't even say this country, I won't limit it to this country because that's definitely not the case. But I don't think that when we're talking about the difference between the violence that's perpetrated towards men versus violence that's perpetrated towards women, meaning women towards men and men towards women, it's definitely not an even playing field. And I know the question wouldn't be posed if it was the opposite way around, meaning I know that we wouldn't be curious as to try to not just defend, but to give an answer or a reason. Well, maybe she does it because of this reason. Well, of course she does it for some reason, and he probably does it for another reason or a reason also.
Well, typically even with men who are abusers, is because they've seen it. I mean, the reality of it is
Sure.
that a lot of behavior is learned behavior. And so oftentimes, when you see somebody that is involved in domestic violence, when you go and trace your family, there was domestic violence there. That's not saying it's a justification, but there's still a reason that people act out, and so then that just means that they need the help they can get. But back to the question, as far as what does a man do, I still stand by my position that it depends on the scenario and the situation. If it's a woman that, even if she's acting crazy, you know that she really and truly cannot cause you physical harm because you are the stronger 9 times out of 10. It makes no sense because you're not going to be able to. The law says that you can meet force with like force. So the reality is that if I hit a man and he hits me and knocks me clean out, that's not like force. So, which is probably also why some men get arrested when they react and when they respond, because you, in general, and we're talking about in general now, because you got some women out here that can take a man out. So, but in general, they are the stronger sex physically.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Sure.
you cannot do to me what I do to you and say that it was like force, because it's not. So, so it's one of those things. It's a thin line, which is why I will always tell my son to walk away, to not put his hands on a woman, to not do any of that thing. Do everything that you can to get out of the situation. You still have a duty, if you can, get out of a situation. Well, I don't want to call it a duty because I don't want to make it seem like that. But it's always best to try to get yourself out of the situation. You don't have to stand there and take it. You can walk away. You don't have to stand there and argue with a woman. You can walk away.
That's the problem. A lot of guys don't walk away when they get hit the first time by that woman. Mm-hmm. Walk away just like a woman. When that guy hit you the first time, oh, I'm sorry, bro. This relationship over. I don't care how many sorries you give me. Mm-hmm. I don't care how many flowers you buy me. Violence progresses.
Yes.
And people love to hit. See, people love to take their frustration out or their anger out on a softer target or a safer target. Ain't nobody going to walk up and hit somebody they know going to knock them out. They just not going to do it. Predators prey on those weaker than themselves, and predators have no sex. You have male and female predators. If they feel you to be weaker, they're going to take advantage. They're going to strike. That's the animal nature in them. That's what they're going to do. I deal with predators every day, and they prey on, they don't care if that person, that prey is a male, they're going to prey on them. If they feel that the stronger object is a woman, they're going to back up off of it. It's just the fact that they're just predators. If that guy walks away and say, I value myself, I'm not going to let you hit me, I'm going to walk away, they would never progress to the point where he have to put his hands on her. You're right, men are naturally stronger, but it's impossible for him to measure, okay, well, you hit me like this, well, I'm only going to hit you like that. Because, like you said, there's so
right.
Much,
you can't. You're not going to do that. You're going to hit that.
They can't. There's no way they can measure that to say, right, I'm going to match it, because they're physically stronger. They could just swat at us and we go flying across the room, while we could swat at them. We'll hit them, but they ain't flying across the room. We hit them. I've never seen a woman hit a man. He go flying. We don't have that type of strength. So I agree with you on that. It just, things progress and people don't want to walk away. They get too emotional. The
Their
person
ego
in a
gets
relationship is where the person that's hitting on you is highly emotional. You need to get up out of the relationship. They can't control their emotions, but then you're emotional because you make excuses for them and to keep allowing them to hit on you, and then it progresses to something very dangerous in the future.
Yeah. So I would still, my recommendation is always going to be for the man to get away, to leave it alone, to walk away. Don't put your hands on her. There's just not a reason to put your hands on her. Again, if it is a threat to your life, if he knocks you out, that's like force, because you can't attempt to take my life and I not respond in that kind of manner, because it's still self-defense. I mean, you can still argue self-defense no matter what, but if that person, whoever the aggressor is. But, you know, we got all these cell phones and all of these things. Walk away, call 911 on her. Call the police on her.
Yeah,
have her arrested.
You know, and I hear you. I do. I really do. But it's not always that simple. It's not always that simple to just walk away.
Unless your
you
life
walk
is
away,
in
you can.
Unless
you walk away,
and
you can.
If you love yourself, it is.
That's what I'm saying.
No, it's not. What I'm saying is not that simple, because every scenario, every situation, it's not going to always be so easy to just walk away. Now, in some instances,
if your life is not in danger as a man, don't put your hands on a woman. That I am never going to say. Even if you're attempting to restrain a woman, to prevent her from hitting you, to restrain her means you may have to put your hands on her. Not that you're attempting to harm her, but you may have to touch her to put your hands on her to restrain her from keeping yourself or, protecting yourself. Yeah,
so
but when I say
what I'm saying is,
on her, I don't mean restraint. I mean physically striking her or something like that.
Okay.
To restrain somebody is completely different. But I'm saying, if you cannot, unless as a man, unless your life is in danger, get out of the way. If a woman pulls a gun on you, you knock her out. I mean, let's just be realistic here. But that's completely different. You can't sit there and allow somebody to try to attempt to take your life. And, but even then, if there's a way out, take the way out. I'm going to always look at, let cooler heads prevail, and it doesn't matter. If somebody else is pulling you, but if somebody else, you give somebody else the power when they can emotionally engage you and pull you into their drama. So if this woman is acting crazy, and that's not who you are, and you have not done anything to provoke this, you haven't done any of that, get away. I just can't. There's just no way in the world that I can ever say that you should ever put your hands on a woman. Yeah, I don't care what she is. I don't care how loudmouth she is. I don't care how whatever derogatory term you have to say about her. My attitude is always going to be, if you can, preserve yourself.
Mm-hmm. And so basically, in situations like that, if the man is expected, and again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I guess I'm just saying all situations are different, and they're not always just so simple. And so, if that is the case, it would seem that means that the man is always put in a position when he's in a situation like that to be the higher, person.
Perhaps.
To be that. And so what is that saying about, therefore, the woman? I mean, just,
you know what?
We're talking about.
I'm just going to go here and say that at the end of the day, the average, and we're going by averages right now, God gave the average man a physical strength over the woman. She cannot match it. The average.
So this we know.
So therefore, so you're going to be held to a higher standard. Keep your emotions in check. That's just all I can say about it. Don't put your hands on a woman. I will never tell my child in any situation, I don't care how crazy that woman gets, and except for the fact that if she can physically harm you, then you protect yourself and you do what you have to do. but it has to be to that situation. And yeah, maybe that's not always predictable. Maybe you don't know, hey, maybe if I turn my back on this woman, she may pull out a weapon and try to do, stab me in my back or do whatever. So, it's a way of assessing that situation. But we just did a conversation before when we talked about rising above emotion. Those types of things have to be implemented even in those situations, because you can't let somebody else pull you into their world, into their drama. You just can't do it. I don't care how crazy she is. So you're going to match crazy for crazy?
Well, I get, but that's the point I'm making. So in this situation, basically the man is always expected to take the high road. So the man is, not only is he physically stronger, mentally and spiritually he must be stronger too, to be able to be in a position where he is able to rise above his emotion, because the woman, she doesn't have the same level of control. Is that what we're saying?
I'm not saying that the woman shouldn't have the same level of control, but the question is basically what happens in that particular scenario. And so if that is the scenario where you happen to be dealing with a woman who cannot seem to contain her emotion, then it would be in your best interest as a man to do so, to maintain your emotional state. It only makes sense because, again, more than likely, you're the one going to jail as a man. You're the one that's going to be seen certain light. Now, we have, some situations where you have seen where a man has basically hit a woman and people cheered it on because of the way she was acting. Like one case, one of the scenarios that comes to my mind is that bus driver. Do you remember that? And,
yeah, I remember that.
And she spit on him, and he said, "Oh, you going to jail now?" No, he didn't hit her at first, but then when she spit on him, he knocked her tail out. And everybody cheered him on. But so there are situations where we have seen a woman get knocked out, and people have actually cheered for that man and have actually supported that man in those scenarios.
Yeah, that was a life and death situation. He's trying to drive a bus.
Exactly.
She tagging on him. She just tagging him like, I understand a woman shouldn't hit a man, but that don't, and a man is stronger than a woman, but that don't mean that our legs don't hurt. Me and my husband spar all the time, and he'll say, and I hit him because I'm thinking this ain't gonna hurt him. He's like, okay, I get your point. Your point well made. You made a strike. It hurt. Don't do it no more. It's like, oh, dang, I didn't realize that really hurt. He's like, yeah, your little head hurt. You know what I mean? So if we hit a man one time, that may not hurt him, but let me keep hitting him 15, 20 times. He going into battle mode. It's just that's how.
And that's all I'm saying is just that
it's no different.
It's not natural.
But it's no different from us when we're dealing with children. What's expected of a man in confrontation with a woman is the same expectation of us when we're dealing with a child. It goes to who's stronger, who's help. See, in society, even though society doesn't respect a woman, they know the truth is there. The truth is in the pudding that man is in charge of woman. He's supposed to protect the woman, not bring harm to her. That's an unwritten law. So whenever a man is seen hitting a woman, it's like, oh, my God, why would you hit her? She could be probably stabbing him 10 times. Somebody's still going to have something to say, well, he ain't have to hit her that hard. But, yeah, he's bleeding to death. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
People would still have something to say. That case with the girl she was really out of control. I was just like, oh, my God. I'm like, at what point is he going to stop her? Because it's going to get pretty bad for him. He's going to have cuts, bruises, all of that. Because punching brings cuts. People may not know that, but punching can bring cuts and bruises. I mean, you can really have some serious injuries from just somebody punching you.
Mhm.
Yeah. And again, it depends on the situation, because if you have a woman who is a trained fighter who comes after you.
Right.
So that's why I say so my first statement was it depends on the woman, it depends on the scenario. But if we're going just by the law of averages, then I'm going to say the average man needs to walk away from the average woman. If she's above average, completely different. Mm-hmm. If you're dealing with a woman that's a third-degree black belt,
yeah.
I mean,
she can
cause some serious harm to you.
or just the sister that's in Grandmaster Anthony class. He will train you
Right.
to defend yourself against a man, and he will teach you where to strike a man where it will hurt. So you're right. A woman who is taught by a man who knows how to fight, she knows where to strike a man. She can really bring some damage to him. So you're totally right. I just wanted to give a shout out to Grandmaster Anthony. Also. I love you, big brother.
But that's the reality of it. So I'm like what I'm saying. So it really depends on the situation, and it's a case by case situation.
Right,
I can't really make a blanket statement to say, well, what happens if this? Well, it depends on all of those factors. Do you have a right to protect yourself? All human beings have a right to protect and to defend themselves. It's the extent of the defense.
And I guess that's really all I'm getting at. I'm really was dealing with the nature of a human being, the nature, and that it is not natural for anything, anybody, any animal, any human, whether it be male or female, to continuously allow anyone to abuse them and they not respond to defend themselves. And I wonder, so my question then becomes, do we think that when a man is in a situation where he is either being abused by a woman or taught in the sense that, yes, you're not to hit a woman back, you're not to do any of these things if she does this or that, does it weaken him in any kind of way?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Tell me why not. Why don't you?
I mean,
think
because
so?
It takes strength to have restraint. That's strength in and of itself. To be able to restrain yourself and not respond in an emotional manner is strength. There is nothing that I look at people because I've already kind of put it out there. Yeah, well, I've gotten in somebody's face before. Even including people that maybe I've been romantically involved with or whatever. And I, in general, have not had men who responded by trying to knock my butt down.
Mhm. Thank God, because you're still with us.
Oh, praise Him. So, because when you act a fool, sometimes So the thing is, I think that generally my thought is this: women, keep your hands to yourself. Don't get in a man's face, because there is no guarantee that he won't knock you on your butt. But as a man, if you can avoid it, whatever is possible, walk away, do all of that kind of stuff. That's just where I am with it. But I don't think it weakens a man for him to be able to control himself and not respond to someone else who is behaving in an irrational manner. Because typically if you are striking somebody, if you're acting crazy, if you're trying to harm a man knowing full well that 9 times out of 10 you can't beat him, then you are irrational. So why should I tell this man to now bring himself down to the level of this irrational person? Because then he's irrational. If she's acting a fool and you meet and you do the same thing, then you're a fool too. So it's not about, this is not that kumbaya or, turn the other cheek type of thing. It's just that it makes no sense. Men often claim that women are emotional, men are not. They're more logical than we are and all of this stuff. Then use those logical male brain cells and show your strength. And show your strength.
Right. Prove it. Show and prove. Right.
Show and prove. Because if you respond to her in the same manner, then don't tell me that you're not as emotional as a woman. And that's the thing. We have a lot of emotional men running around here. It's just like when the clip I was telling you about when the minister said that a man shouldn't abuse a woman. He basically said, you running around here like you can't do anything with this woman. He said, that's why you running around here with lace panties on. You show your strength by being able to withstand that, as far as I'm concerned. Show and prove. You don't have to do all of that. Again, we're talking about averages, and we're talking about situations where your life is not in danger. you threaten his life, all bets are off. And you need to understand that.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting topic. And I'd love to, I would love to open this topic up to, invite maybe some of our male guests to join in and maybe see what they think on this.
I know we did discuss the issue of violence in a relationship from a bullying standpoint, but I do think we need to address the issue of violence in a relationship when it comes to controlling the other person. In past conversations, we did talk about our inability to control our emotions and how devastating that is to our relationships, in particular our relationships between man and woman. The key to uplifting the Black nation is to address the issue of Black man and Black woman relationship. Is dysfunctional, and we definitely need to address it, because once we fix the issue of Black male female dynamics in a relationship is when our Black nation will rise. I have to give that shout out to Sister Ava Muhammad, because she discussed that in her book, in one of her books. So I definitely want to give that shout out to her, because she hit that spot on. A Unit of Measurement is the book that I'm referring to. And she talks about, in that book, she talks about how important the Black family is in the resurrection of the Black nation. So I'm like, man, that's very deep. Right now, we're just so competitive with one another. It's, I got to have a one-up on you. You got to have a one-up on me. It's, I got to control you, got to control me. And in that thinking is where violence has been an incubator for violence. So that's something I want us to really discuss. What's you guys' thoughts on that?
Wow.
I mean, I agree.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying I agree with her that control of another person does, create situations that can turn into violence because of jealousy, because of our ability, because we think that we own another human being. And the reality of it is that we don't own other human beings, and we need to understand that concept. Men need to understand that as a woman, we're not man's woman, we're God's woman, first and foremost. I may be your wife, I may be your mate, I may be whatever, but I am the woman of God. So you don't own me. And when we get that through our heads, I think then we can understand. Just stop trying to control other people and stop trying to be jealous. Well, I mean, I guess that's a part of jealousy, but not knowing what to do with that jealousy. Jealousy can create all sorts of scenarios in that person's mind.
Mm-hmm. So what do you all think some of the root causes of in this case, I guess we'll be talking about male or violence from a male to a female, violence against women. What would you say are some of the key reasons why a man would feel as if he needs to control a woman, and the only way in which he can do that is by physical force? Because I know we are seeing more and more, especially now, there's so many crimes against women, and I'm talking about every kind of woman, whether, no matter what color she might be, whatever ethnic background she might be, and no matter where she might live, her status, her economic status, all across the board there is violence against women. There's the disrespect against women. And so when we think about some of the root causes, what would you all think are some of those causes? I mean, we talk about control, but what is the reason that one would feel that I need to control you?
Well, I would say that our men, first of all, they don't have a relationship with their Lord. They don't understand where they fit in the pecking order. Because you have men who have a God complex. They think they are God. When I say God, I mean men are gods. but not supreme God. So we have men walking around like they are supreme God. They have what is
so
called
where do you think that comes from?
Ambiguity. That comes from
Okay.
lack of knowledge of God. That comes from you not searching for God. You have this, that's a devil thinking, really, because if you go to the history of bliss and how when God said bow to man, and he said, I ain't bowing to him. He made of mud. I'm made of fire. I'm better than him. That's the same spirit in which man acts today. It's the same exact spirit. I ain't
So it's
bowing
like that
to nobody.
fiery nature.
I ain't bowing to nobody. Yeah, that good spirit. I ain't bowing to nobody because I'm great. Ain't nobody greater than me. That's man's spirit. And so when
would you say that that's equivalent to, would you say that is equivalent to like that of the ego? Because I know we delved into emotions and ego. So would that be similar to like the ego when you're dealing with Satan or Iblis and that fiery spirit of not wanting to submit?
I do agree. Man is definitely at war with God right now. And as Sister Ava mentioned in her book, we're caught up in that. In his war with God, I'm taking this woman. I'm going to abuse this woman. That's pretty much what is happening right here. While Minister Farrakhan has been trying to uplift the black woman for how long? For how many years? Man is constantly trying to put her back down. Where the man is at war with God right now. If he stopped warring God, he'll see value in his woman, or that man will see value in the woman until he stops warring with God.
And it's self-esteem. It's domination. First of all, we can go back 400 plus years. When many of our people were in bondage in this country, and you were stripped of your manhood in the eyes of your woman. All of these different things. Now, this is not an excuse because I don't want it to sound like that, but it was taught also. The disrespect of women. This man could come in front of you and your wife and take what's yours, and you couldn't do nothing about it as a man.
And so, and even though it's not an excuse, it still is a reason.
Well, yeah,
it's a part of the whys, not making excuses, but, everything that happens, there is a root cause. And if the reason is strong enough, it definitely has an effect and can put a person in a position where it's difficult to come out. So if I'm a man and I've watched another man take my wife in front of me, so this is going into my DNA. And so now this fear, this thought process is being passed down to my seed. And again, not that anybody is making excuses, but although it's not an excuse, it is a reason. And it's deep like that, and maybe this is the reason why for some it can be a challenge to shake, because if I've been made to feel like I'm less than, and now I'm attempting to regain my power because I know that naturally, I am of a higher being, and as I continue to try to reach, I don't have anything to really grab onto. So you're disrespecting me, she's laughing at me, I can't do this right, I can't do that right. So the only thing that I can do is grab hold to your neck or to punch you or to hit you. And it's so unfortunate because it really shows how much work we have to do to repair and to heal and to bring us out of this condition so that we can return and go back to the way in which God has intended for it to be.
I forgot which one of our scholars, our black scholars, talked about this, but I forgot which one. I wish I could remember who it was. I've been listening to so many different ones. Yeah, I'm not sure who it was, but until we let go of this European's way of thinking, then and we get back to the way we're a matriarchal people, meaning that our women hold value in our society. The European is patriarchal. The woman holds no value in his society, so they're useless. That's one of the main reasons why the European woman had to give birth to this feminist movement, because they were fighting for rights to be respected. That was never an issue in our society, because we had what the Royal Empress was black women who were running empires. I mean, come on,
Absolutely.
we can go through the history. I mean, we have
we
Shanti,
can.
a great warrior. We have the mother of Shaka Zulu, a great warrior. So in our society in Africa, our women held high places. But in the European society, she holds no value. She's just there for entertainment. Until our people give back that European patriarchal way of thinking and get back to our original way of thinking, we're going to continue to have these problems.
We will continue to have these problems as long as you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. We have to return the package to the sender. It's not ours. It doesn't belong to us. Give it back. A nation can rise no higher than its woman. And so we can look at any condition of any place in the world, and we see that if we can see the condition that the woman is in, we see the condition or the state of being that nation is in. Look at America. America is in the worst condition out of all on this planet. We live in the hells of North America, meaning where everything goes. Everything around is falling. But look at the condition of the woman. Look at where she's at. Look at where she's placed in society. Look at how she's abused. Look at how she's disrespected. Look at her pay. Look at the education. Although, now we definitely are in a different state educationally wise. But if you we're lagging behind. You look at other places. Now, we might not think we're lagging behind. I'm sure many women would probably argue that point, because we're looking at, hey, you're allowed to make $1. You're allowed to go to school and get an education. So we may look at it like we are in a different place in society, but I'm looking at the disrespect and the lack thereof any respect for the woman. It bears witness to our condition. And as we were saying, or as what was spoken earlier, until we decide that we're not here anymore, then there's no way that, even with the black man, if he is our protector and he's the person who's been put on the planet to respond and stand up for us and on our behalf, if he is feeling as if it's okay to even abuse us, the same way his slave master's children taught him or abused him, then it almost seems as if there's no hope. What do you all feel is not the cure, but how do we switch gears and change where we are right now, understanding the condition that both the black man and the black woman are in, and why violence is continuously perpetrated amongst, the black woman? Even when you start thinking about all of the women that's coming up missing throughout the world, particularly in the U.S., but you see it everywhere. I forget what statistics said this year alone, how many women have come up missing, just disappeared. I know at one point, everyone was saying, bring home our girls. I haven't heard that in a while, but it's become an epidemic all over. Where do we go? What do we do? What are some of the things that we can do to change or switch gears?
I think as a black woman, we have to be, we're the first teacher, right? We have to go in our community, we have to teach the value of the black woman. We have to teach that. And in teaching that, we have to encourage our men to stand up for us. I mean, more and more, now you see more women being vocal about mistreatment of women because that whole movement has been started by women. You see more men saying, you know what, I'm supporting these women because my mother, I come from a woman. I've heard so many male athletes. Because, the NFL had, like, for a minute, they had a campaign talking about the mistreatment of women, and they had the NFL players coming out, and they were making statements. Hey, I come from my mother. I'm standing up for my mother. I'm standing up for my sister. I'm standing up for every woman that I know. And I think that's one of the ways that we could change this around. We, as women, got to stand up and say we're valued. We have to show each other value. Can't ask someone to value you if you don't value yourself. If we as women start warring with each other, then we start uniting. That in itself is going to elevate us, and that's going to force men to respect us a lot more. Can't respect people that's fighting with each other. You're like, oh, I don't want to respect either one of them. They unite together. It's like, oh, man, that's a whole lot of power over there. I'm going to respect you. When we start to respect each other, like black women, we have to respect each other more and see the value in ourselves. As women, we have to value ourselves more. We're so quick to give our bodies away to these men. How could a man see you as value? He met you yesterday. He's sleeping with you tonight. Now, in his mind, you're useless to me. You're not worth anything because not only have I slept with you, I know about 10 other people that slept with you. You're not valued to me, so now I'm going to hit you. Now I'm going to treat you like dirt. And when I get tired of you, I'm going to kill you and throw your body over in the lake somewhere because you're of no value. We have to dictate our value, our worth. How can a man treat you like garbage if you don't treat yourself like that? Because you're not going to stand for that. At work, I deal with a lot of men. It's always, hey, little mama. Excuse me, brother. Don't call me little mama. You call me Mrs. or you call me officer. You don't call me little mama. Well, I wasn't trying to disrespect you. I said, but you are disrespecting me. Right. Some men ain't never been taught how to respect a woman because they ain't never met no woman. You have a lot of brothers who come from a household where a woman was abused by several men. This man come in the house for a while and abuse their mama. He leave. Another man come in the house and abuse their mama. So they, in their community, they may not have seen that. Some brothers do come from that type of environment. Not all of our men, but there are some brothers that come from that type of environment. They have to be taught. Like this one young man, and he was talking to a lieutenant, and she's a female. And she asked him a question, and he started yelling. And she said, first and foremost, good morning, brother. She said, now, why you yelling? Do you really know he really did not understand that he don't use the same voice to a woman that he used to a man? He was very sincere because I asked him, I said, you don't use that tone when you talking to a woman. That scares us. He said, I apologize. I was not really yelling. That's his aggressive nature. He was so aggressive to women like he is to men. You can't be that way. See, we have to teach men how to treat us. We have to teach them or educate them on our value. If we don't do that, they won't value us. So it's our responsibility to some extent. Women. And the more we teach, the more our brothers will jump in and reinforce that.
Yeah, I was going to say I've seen scenarios, I don't know if you've ever run into it, where women, they'll have their son and they'll say, oh, my son going to grow up, he gonna be a player. He going to have all the women. Yeah. He's going to be this. He's going to be that. So when we talk about the teaching, the teaching starts at home, because we do see this, and and I hear these statistics when they talk about, which we'll have a conversation one day about that, but about single parents and single moms, and because of the makeup in the household, that's why the men are this and the men are that. But again, if mom is the first teacher, where do you get these things from? How are you being taught something other than what is, being taught in your house? Now, I get that there's outside influences, but also we have to look at the fact, too, that when men mistreat women, it's also learned behavior in their household. If you are in a household where the boy is being raised in a dysfunctional home where dad and mom are arguing all the time, or where dad puts his hands on mom, chances are when he grows up, even though he witnessed that, he's going to turn around and abuse as well. So
either he will abuse, absolutely. In most cases, that is what happens. But then in some cases, because he's seen the abuse, then he wants to take the other opposite role.
Yeah,
and not be the abuser. But it's unfortunate either way.
Yeah,
I mean, well,
usually you see it though. Usually when you see an abusive man, if you shake the tree a little bit, he will have been exposed to abuse somewhere, somebody where he would have witnessed that and thought that it was okay. And it's just like scenario after scenario when you see it, and it doesn't affect all the children. Not necessarily. Some boys, are going to come to their mother's aid, and they're always going to be their mom's protector. And, and they have such a love for their mother that they would never do it. But then the opposite side, flip side of that is the guys who don't, the man who just completely disrespects the mother and allows the children. There was a video, I believe it was an interracial couple, but I can't remember. She may have just been really, okay, let me stop because I don't remember the racial makeup. The point is the father was in the household and the father allowed the children to mistreat the mother. The father was abusive towards the mother and the children were as well. And they would talk to her any kind of way, call her out of her name, and the father condoned it. The father really kind of encouraged it. So, so those children grow up and they do that to a woman. It's because they were taught that. And so it's just like even going back to my point about, during slavery, it's a matter of certain things being taught. And if this man disrespects his woman, he has no regard for his woman or anything like that, then that's learned behavior. Even when we look at this it's still abuse. I think infidelity can be a form of abuse, particularly if you're just out there, whoring around and all of those things. But just think about that whole image of them going and bedding whoever they chose to, which means that there was no sanctity for marriage, and it still was mistreatment of that woman because it
right, it's a disrespect.
It was a disrespect, and so so many things is not nature but nurture, and so you've been nurtured in a society that disregards and disrespects women in general, and so that's what you do. We also have situations where we don't because it's like, well, we don't want to be like the dominant society, so to speak, and so you do things a little bit differently. But I definitely think that we have to be careful in our homes in terms of what we're exposing our young sons to, and even if the father isn't in the home, but mom has all these different boyfriends or maybe even one boyfriend who's abusive towards her, he's still seeing that, and that's the first impression you get about how to treat women, I think, sometimes is with your mother. And so and then the other part of that is if you have a mother who is, shows no type of respect at all that you can't respect, there's a hatred and an anger that you can turn towards other women as a result of that. It's just so many factors. It's so many factors that cause that to take place. And so it's just like you said, we got to heal our people from within so that we can stop. Because if you love yourself, if you really love yourself, you're not going to want to harm yourself. And your mate, in the right circumstance, is your second self.
Right.
That's your twin half. So why would you want to abuse, what should be a part of you? But if you hate yourself, it's easy to harm yourself.
Right. Yes, a lot of repair.
Especially in a society where people self-medicate. I mean, that's just an example of Akila, an example of people not loving themselves. They will abuse themselves. So if I abuse my own personal self, my own personal body, I'll abuse my mate. I'll definitely will abuse my children.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it goes back to self-love, and I don't know if we really or most really understand what that means, self-love, okay, loving myself. And because it's often repeated, but yet rarely understood, people believe that they really do love themselves. But, I guess I always say if you're looking in the mirror, at yourself, to really be able to fall in love with yourself, as the both of you, mentioned somewhat, you really have to be able to first appreciate, what you're looking at and have the desire to want to be, free and not closed mentally, not, because see, when you have a desire to want to be free, then that means that you don't want anybody else to take away your freedom. People take away your freedom by the way in which they choose to treat you. Disrespect is a taking away of your freedom. Putting their hands on you is taking away of your freedom. But when you ask most people, well, do you love yourself? Well, of course I love myself. But then all of their actions really scream the opposite. So just really fully embracing and understanding what that really means and what it looks like. But also understanding that that is the root cause of the why, why we find ourselves in these types of situations in the first place. As we were talking, I was reflecting, and I believe I spoke about this in another conversation that we were having when we were dealing with the raising of the black male child. I recall a young woman who was married, and she had a couple of children by her husband, but the issue was that her son would always disrespect her. I mean, she was always having an issue with him, always having a problem with him. Every time she said anything to him, he immediately got an attitude. She could never really fully connect with him, so they didn't get along. And one of the things that we talked about, because we were, trying to deal with why is he responding this way? And so one of the things that I pointed out to her was that because she was in a relationship with her husband, who was his father, and this relationship was that of an abusive one. He abused her constantly. He disrespected her constantly. He called her out of her name. Constantly, he put his hands on her. And he did this, while the son oftentimes witnessed it. So what I had saw was a son who was very angry. He was angry actually at his mother because here he was, a young boy, not the physical strength of his father, because he was still young and still growing. And he actually resented his mother. I resent you because you put me in this situation, and I am not able to physically stand up and protect you the way I would like to, because this is a strong man who happens to be my father. And because you refuse to stand up for yourself, because you refuse to leave, and this has been going on ever since I've been a young child, so I'm used to it now, then when you say something to me, I'm automatically snapping back at you. When you tell me to do something, whatever kind of conversation or engagement that we have, I don't have any respect for you because I've watched you be my role model and allow this man to abuse you over and over and over again, and you continue to go back. You continue not to get us out of this situation. You're supposed to be my protector, and yet I'm really supposed to be yours, but I can't because I'm a young man and I have not grown to that place yet. So the father put fear in him when he was a little boy. And now as he's growing to become a man, he's not there yet and still fears the father, so he takes it out on the mother because he's, in other words, saying, I resent you. You should have escaped. You should have gotten us out of here. And I can't protect you the way I really want to protect you. So instead, I'm going to lash out against you. Instead, I'm going to disrespect you. Instead, I'm just not going to follow any of your instructions. Because deep down inside, I realize that you've taught me really not to love you because you didn't have enough love for yourself and really enough love for us as your children to get us out of this situation. And I hate you for that. And we see this often You know, we see this often, but it's played out differently.
Very deep subject. It's a very deep subject matter, but it's so real.
Yeah.
So real. You're hitting it right on the head, like I said.
And, you know, we can't forget the mental abuse either.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, you don't have to physically put your hands on somebody to mentally abuse them. How many women are insecure about themselves and things like that because of something somebody else has said to them, or, you know, they have children and haven't lost the weight that they want to lose, and they tell, you know, and the man is, you know, talking about them and telling them nobody's going to want you. And then that woman actually internalizes it. And it's like he doesn't have to do the work because the seed is now planted.
Right.
So it's a whole lot of stuff. And usually, and for you to do that to somebody else, it clearly means that there's something going on with your self-esteem. So who told you that about you? Who told you something was wrong with you? Because the reality, you know, I know it's cliche to say now that hurt people hurt people. Usually you can look in somebody's life, and there's a reason behind everything.
Right. It's been a good one. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us on another conversation with the Royal Empress.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Conversations with the Royal Empress. Tune in next week for another enlightening conversation. For more information on the Royal Empress, please visit the website royalempress.org. You can also follow the Royal Empress on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Conversations with the Royal Empress is a subsidiary of the Royal Empress organization. All rights reserved.